The current Chinese regime, the CCP, is not good for India and possibly for the entire world. Contrasting this with the Chinese kingdoms, people often say that the CCP is a curse on China's historical and cultural image. Is this true? Or were the Chinese kingdoms just aristocratic versions of the one party system? What I'm trying to ask is, the culture and religion affect the people of a country very much. We Indians are what we are because of our dharma. How was ancient and medieval China? Can it be called a great civilization, or was it a collection of power hungry barbarians fighting each other without the presence of higher values? I would certainly consider China to be one of the great civilizations. It is obviously a much younger civilization than India's. India is the older and greater civilization. Right now, China is economically more powerful, militarily more powerful, but we have a certain equilibrium that we have reached for now. So historically, like you say, Akash, the Chinese Communist Party is essentially a continuation of China's imperial system. So China has this curious phenomenon called dynastic cycles. So a dynasty rises, it becomes it comes to power in Beijing. They have emperors. You have a number of emperors in the dynasty, and it reaches the pinnacle of its power, and then for whatever reason it becomes very oppressive, and then there's or it loses what's called the mandate of heaven, which means it loses the war somewhere or something like that, and the people feel that, yeah, this dynasty has lost the mandate of heaven, and then the dynasty is overthrown. That's what happens always, even in other countries, other civilizations. So the dynasty is overthrown, then there is a period of anarchy, maybe a century or so, and then a new dynastic cycle rises. So that's how it has always been in China. So the CCP, the Chinese Communist Party, is we are witnessing a new dynastic cycle. This is also a dynasty. It's not a hereditary dynasty, but the president of China is essentially the emperor, and the CCP is the dynasty. So the next president will not be the current president's offspring; it will be somebody else, but it will be within the CCP's inner echelons of power. So it's a different form of a dynasty, but it's still a dynasty. So typically, a dynastic cycle would last from anything between 100 years to 300-400 years. So the CCP is going to complete 100 years in 2049. So that's how it is. So the Chinese kingdoms were aristocratic versions of the one party system, and the Chinese Communist Party is a atheistic version, or a 21st century version or 20th century version of the old dynastic cycles. The Chinese emperors have typically been atheists. The values they followed were usually a certain amalgam of Confucianism and legalism. Legalism is the stick, Confucianism is the carrot. You could see it like that. So maybe I'll explain that in more detail some other time, but that's how it is. So it's usually been a balance, a certain mix, a certain amalgam of legalism and Confucianism. I think it was Huangdi, the Yellow Emperor, who was a proponent of legalism, which was the brute force approach. And Confucianism and Taoism, to some extent, is a much milder approach. But all of these approaches are essentially atheistic approaches. China, for a very long time, for the longest time in the past 2000 years, has been a Buddhist country. But the emperors have never followed Buddhism as the state religion or state culture. It's the people who have followed that. And you have had local rulers and chieftains who have followed Buddhism, but the Chinese emperor in the Forbidden City has never been that way. So that is how China was. It is certainly a great civilization. I would certainly give them that status. It's not like I'm doing them a favor by doing it. They are. All right. Was China a collection of power hungry barbarians fighting each other without presence of higher values? From time to time, yes. You could say so. I think there is an element of barbarism in everybody, in every culture. If it is tempered by civilizational and cultural values, it is not quite visible. When that goes away, then the barbarism comes out to the fore, which we see in all cultures and civilizations in the world. At times, we see that. So China has at times been a collection of power hungry barbarians fighting each other. When we see the history of China, they have fought lots and lots of wars. What we find is that all of these wars have been within themselves. I mean, the great strategist Sun Tzu was a great warrior, a great general, and so on. Whom did he fight? He fought his fellow Chinese. That's what he did, if he indeed did exist. So that's how it is. Their greatest wars and their greatest military campaigns have been among each other. And whenever a great foreign force has invaded China, the Chinese have invariably lost. Like Edward Luttwak would say, it takes four guys on horseback to conquer China. So that's being a little flippant, but kind of there's more than a little grain of truth in there. So that's what I could say about this. The culture and religion do affect the country very much. Every country has a certain character. The Russian nation has a certain overall character. India has a certain overall character. So does China, and so does the English speaking world. They also have a certain character. So that's how it goes.